In this video, I'll be showing you how you can work on another person using the Easy Entity Release app. And this is my assistant Jessica, and she has graciously volunteered to help us today. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so if you have the app in front of you, you can follow along. And we're going to turn to the Prayer of Protection chart. So before we get started, Jessica is a fellow light worker, and she's been using the app as we have been developing it. So we're gonna just go along here and see what comes up for her. Jessica has suffered from migraines.
Oh, yeah.
In the past, well, for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like the last 3 or 4 years.
10.
10 years.
10 years. And for 10 years.
Okay, so we've worked together, and Jessica's working on herself to eliminate those.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you have the app, you can follow along. We're going to turn to the Prayer of Protection page. So if you are wanting to work on a family member or a friend, you'd have to use muscle testing, or you can use a pendulum to get answers for them. So I'm just tuning into Jessica's energy field when I do that. So I can actually just do that right now before we begin. Okay, so I would say the prayer of protection, you can either have the person say it with you or not, it doesn't matter, but I'm just going to say it for the both of us. I choose the light, I am the light. I call upon Source, God Consciousness, and I ask for your protection and guidance in clearing dark entity and dark entity consciousness. I neutralize any fears I have, any misconceptions and misinformation about the nature of this work. When I am courageous enough to take this journey, I call the dark into the light to be healed. This allows me to see my own magnificence and the truth of who I am more clearly. I choose the light, I am the light. Okay, and then we can skip to the next chart. Okay, so when I ask these questions, I'm asking them for Jessica. It's good before you're working on someone to check for yourself personally to make sure that you are hydrated, that you are protected and grounded, and that's going to really allow you to connect with the person that you're working on, working for. Okay, so I'm going to use finger kinesiology, and I can just ask, am I connected to Jessica? And that's a yes. So I can ask, is Jessica grounded and connected to Source, God? And that's a yes. Is Jessica protected? And that's a yes. Is Jessica hydrated? And that's a yes. Is her muscle testing accurate? And that's a yes. And the answers that I receive are my soul's highest truth and good, and the answers that Jessica receives, and that's a yes. If any of those are a no for the person that you're working on, if it's hydration, you'd want to make sure that they drink some water. It's nice to have some water there so they can get hydrated when needed. And also, if any of these other answers are no, you could run through the app and find out if there's any dark energy that's blocking maybe from being protected or being grounded. Okay. So if everything's a yes, we can check Jessica's light score would be the next step. Okay, so is Jessica's light score above 50? Is it above 60? It's above 70, above 80, above 90? Is it above 95? So it's a 90. Okay.
Sounds about right.
Which is good. Okay, and now we switch to the next chart, which is parts or aspects of consciousness. Okay, so which part of consciousness wants to speak for Jessica? Is it general, higher self? So her soul consciousness, which is the eternal part of herself, wants to speak. Okay, and then we can go to next. Okay, so when you're working with someone else, it's important to preface the questions from that soul part of consciousness. So from now on, I would say, Jessica's soul consciousness, is there a type of dark entity or spirit that needs to be clear today? And that's a yes. And is that number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8. Okay, number 9, number 10. Okay, so number 10 is biblical dark entity consciousness. Okay, so we mark that. Okay, and the next chart is all the names of the different types of biblical dark entity consciousness that exist. I'm sure there are more, but this is just all that I have. Okay, so we want to know the type. If you didn't pick this category, then you could just skip this. So Jessica's soul consciousness, we could say, is it 1 through 10? And that's a no. Okay, is it 11 through 20? And that's a no. Okay, is it 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28? So Satan, dark entity consciousness. Okay, interesting. Okay, and then we can click the next button. So all the dark entity consciousness is a consciousness, which is something that Jessica has drawn to her and taken into her energy field. So I just wanted to take a moment to ask Jessica if she had any idea how that was created. It's kind of nice, and people like to talk about this sometimes. They like to say, oh yeah, I know how that might have been created. Or
Well, I will say I was not shocked when Satan came up. Unfortunately, because when I was in 6th grade, my mom decided to put me into Catholic school for a year. And with that, I was thrown into going to Mass every Wednesday and being with my classmates, and some of them a little unkind. I remember the very first week of school, we went to Mass and I had to do communion. And unfortunately, I had only been baptized. I had never actually done communion. So when I partook in taking the host, it was frowned upon because of my lack of communion. So the unkind classmates decided to call me the spawn of Satan. And I basically took that with me the entire year, and that had become my nickname. So Satan follows me, apparently.
Okay, well, we're going to clear him today.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
So that's really not an uncommon story. So one way biblical dark entity consciousness can manifest is when we repeatedly hear or say the names of anything that represents evil, and the energy of that is drawn into the person's energy field and can sometimes become trapped. Also, there's usually an emotional energy that gets stuck or trapped at the same time. I don't know, Jessica, if you were feeling any type of feeling unworthy or not good enough or not accepted. So those emotions probably became trapped at the same time. So the next page on the app is underlying causes. So we can ask if there are any underlying causes. So Jessica's soul consciousness, are there any underlying causes for this biblical dark entity consciousness? And that's a yes. Okay, is it number 1, negative emotional energy? And that's a yes. So we can mark this and move on to the next page. So at the end, we'll find out what that is and clear that first. So the next chart is the when chart. So Jessica's soul consciousness, can we determine when this happened? And that's a yes. Is it in the womb? Was it a birth? 0 to 10, 11 to 20, which confirms the age that Jessica was talking about. Okay, so the next chart is body part or system affected. We could just ask, do we need this chart? And that's a yes. Okay, so Jessica's soul consciousness, can we determine what's been affected here? And is it the physical body? So it's the mental body. So The mind. Is there another chart? Is there another, excuse me, is there another body part or system affected? And that's a yes. Is that emotional body? And that's also a yes. Okay, spiritual body, and that's also a yes. Okay, is there, Jessica's soul consciousness, is there anything else on this chart we need? And that's a no. So we've got the mental body, emotional body, and spiritual body affected. Okay, so there's a lot of these. Next. Okay, Jessica's soul consciousness, is there a chakra that's affected? And that's a no, so we can hit the skip button. Jessica's soul consciousness, is there meridian affected? And that's a no, so we can skip that step. Jessica's soul consciousness, do we need this Y category? And that's a no, so we can skip that. Jessica's soul consciousness, is there a reason? Do we need this category? And that's a no. Okay. Jessica's soul consciousness, do we need the symptoms category? And we do. Okay, so we could just go through this. Is it number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, so 16 is hatred of self. So this may have caused Jessica to have detrimental feelings about herself, low self-esteem. I don't want to put words into your mouth, but
All very likely.
Okay, so there's a lot of these, which is good. Okay, and the next chart is fail-safes. With this chart, I'm really trying to identify if there's more than one of something. So we're trying to, this isn't so much comes into play with the consciousness, but definitely with the other types. So we can ask if this is necessary. Do we need this, Jessica's soul consciousness, do we need this fail-safe chart? And that's a no. Okay, so then we come to the clearing instructions. And the chart results, which just lists everything that we chose. Okay, so before Jessica chose a underlying cause, which was an emotion. So it's best that we clear these underlying causes first. Otherwise, there's a chance that the dark entity consciousness will return. So the way we do this is we can ask Jessica what kind of emotions she was feeling at the time.
Oh boy.
Jessica? And then we can just test. I'll just test whatever she says.
Oh, this is going to be a long list. I felt like I was very isolated in 6th grade.
Okay.
I didn't have a lot of friends at the time. I felt like I was not worthy.
Okay, so unworthiness, that's a yes.
Yeah, unlikable, unlovable.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and clear these feelings of unworthy and also get anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, that's
so
not a good
we
one.
can clear those both at once. So we're going to clear those underlying causes first, those emotions of unworthiness and anxiety for Jessica. So the way we could do this, we're folding in all the emotions of emotional energies of unworthiness and anxiety for Jessica. From around age 11 and 12. Okay, this is cleared. Do those clear? We can double check with muscle testing. And that's a yes, thank you. Okay, are there more of these? And that's a no. So once the underlying causes are clear, we can move into the clear and release cancellation phrase for this biblical dark entity consciousness. So step 1, ask which part of consciousness wants to talk or assist and witness the release. So that's more than likely Jessica's soul consciousness. Is that right? Jessica's soul consciousness, and that's a yes. Okay, so then we read aloud the release statement. I call upon Source, God Consciousness, and the Council of Light Beings on Earth, and I ask for your assistance to expel the Satan Dark Entity Consciousness from Jessica's being. I hereby declare all the identified Satan dark entity consciousness that Jessica is entangled with on all levels and dimensions in this lifetime, past lifetimes, and future incarnations be taken to the galactic center to be contained or recycled back to source consciousness. I also clear now any energetic imprints, threads, cords, tethers, or bindings that would keep Jessica stuck in this dark entity patterning and are not in balance and harmony with who she is now and who she wants to be in the future. And so it is. And just take a few moments to feel that release going through. You can use your breath. Okay, so I got my little sign that that's cleared, and I can double check. Do those release from Jessica? And that's a yes. And are there any more that are ready to be cleared right now that exist? And that's a no. Okay, and then we can move on to step 3, which we already tested to see. So we did that. I'm getting ahead of myself. So now we're going to bring Jessica's light essence back into her body. So I also like to use my breath to do this. So now bringing Jessica's light essence back into her body, or back into every cell of her being. We could bring that back into her central channel, whatever feels appropriate for you. Okay, and that's back. Did we do this? And we did. Okay, so now we're going to ask to be shown an upgraded vision or knowing. Okay, if you're not comfortable doing this for yourself, you might not be able to see for another person. So don't worry about this step. You could also ask the person if they can see an upgraded vision or knowing from themselves. Okay, so that's a little flexible when you're working with somebody else. Okay, and for the last step, we want to give thanks. So we give thanks and gratitude to the Council of Light Beings on Earth for assisting us today. So the last thing we'll do is check Jessica's light score. So it was at 90. Is it still a 90? No. 95? No. 96? So it's now at 97. Okay, so I hope this video has helped you if you are interested in working with somebody else, taking them through the app. And Jessica, I'd like to thank you for assisting today.
You are welcome, and thank you.
Oh,
Appreciate it.
And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.